Welcome again to the Play Space Live. Keith Avalon from Play Games. Sam is running the board again tonight, keeping us on the air. Tonight we're going to look at a timeline for our fictional baseball universe here at Play Games. A little backstory to set this all up for you. Last year, 2022, was the 10th season of Baseball America. Hard to believe so much time has gone by. We launched it with the game in 2013, and the 2022 season was the 10th anniversary season. We made a big deal out of it. We created a special deluxe set where we created identities for each of the 12 Baseball America teams. Up until 2022, they existed in numerical values only. There was Team 1, Team 8, and Team 12. Everybody was kind of creating their own identities for the teams. And we borrowed some of those, some of the more higher profile community team identities. We co-opted into this set, kind of to honor the people playing the game, and also commemorate the franchise, the Baseball America franchise. So we used Jeff Hale. Jeff Hale, of course, is like the bellwether history maker baseball player, fictional player. He's played hundreds of games with his own fictional league. We borrowed one of the teams from the league, the St. Louis Showboats. That came from Jeff Hale's league. Steve Tower, of course, does the New England Minutemen with Fernando Valenzuela. I know, it was intentional. He's intentionally reminiscent of Fernando Valenzuela. Yes, it's Fernando de la Rosa. And then there's Travis Jansen's Milwaukee Barrelman. Travis showed up to the convention one year with a Barrelman jersey, Johnny Fortune Barrelman jersey. It's pretty cool. So we did borrow some of the team identities that other people had created for us. And we created an all-decade team for Baseball America. First team, second team, third team honors, and we published that in one of our e-newsletters, The Connect. And through all this, I exchanged some emails with Larry Marathu, otherwise known as Bear Marathu. Bear is big into Baseball America. He likes to take a deep dive every year into the roster changes, and keeps a chronicle of who's moving to what team. And Bear reached out to me and said, why don't we do like a Hall of Fame for Baseball America? And he went through all of the rosters, and using the official MLB guidelines for how to get into the Hall of Fame. You got to be retired for 5 years and so on. He presented a list of pretty slim pickings, actually, of not very notable players who had been retired 5 years and who might be, eligible for a Hall of Fame. And we were kind of came to the conclusion that, you really can't create a Hall of Fame based on 10 years worth of baseball history. So it did get my wheels turning, though, about what, a Hall of Fame. Did we really want to wait until 2043 and to have 30 years of Baseball America in the can and then draw from that for a Hall of Fame? I don't think so. What if there were like 50 or 60 years of history to draw from? And that's what tonight's show is all about. We do have three fictional baseball entities in the Play Games universe. It started with the Century League. That's our earliest league. We launched the Century League card set with the baseball game launch in 2013, and it's set in the 1940s. It's reminiscent of 1940s baseball. It's got a lot of great nicknames from that era. So you got Frying Pan Pogue and Go-Go Greatman, and a bunch of guys who are very memorable baseball characters. And we've never moved on from that season, like created additional Century League seasons. But, it's always been kind of in the back of my mind that, maybe we do a 1950s Century League. It's not like the Century League card set is a one-off card set so far, but that's not to say that the Century League didn't continue on. So we have the Century League, then we have, of course, Baseball America, which we've kind of already talked about. And then we have our pseudo-fictional league, the Continental League, the 1961 Continental League, which we introduced last year, or I think it was 2 years ago. And it is based on the real-life proposed 1961 Continental Baseball League, which its commissioner, Branch Rickey, once said on the game show To Tell the Truth that the opening day of the 1961 Continental League was as certain as tomorrow morning. Quote. Well, it didn't happen that way, mainly because the existing Major League Baseball owners got wise to it and kind of squeezed him out by expanding into all the cities, all the key cities that the Continental League was going to go into. But it does beg the question, what if the Continental League had played in 1961? What would it have looked like? And so that's what the Continental League card set is all about. It's real players playing in a fictional context on teams that we've created. So we have the Century League, the Continental League, and then Baseball America. And, 3 fictional baseball entities. What if we could weave all 3 of these leagues into a single fictional baseball storyline? And that's what we're going to try to do tonight. And we've created sort of a PowerPoint, except we don't have, the technical expertise to have it like flashing in the background, like if you were watching a TV news show or something. So we just created it on paper, and we'll go to the game cam, and I'll just flip the pages, and you can see they're like on big cards. Are we on the table? We are on the table. All right, so here's 1946. World War II is over. There's a new baseball league around the Century League, and the Century League forms with 9 teams, and here they are. We've named them the Baltimore Blue Sox, the Boston Minutemen, Chicago Robins, Cleveland Stevedores, New York Shamrocks, Milwaukee Barrelmen, Philadelphia Oaks, the Pittsburgh Pachyderms with the elephants on the sleeves, reminiscent of the Oakland A's or the Philadelphia A's or the Kansas City A's, and then the St. Louis Showboats. So that's where we begin in 1946 with these 9 teams. There are 9 teams in the Century League. They're numbered. They're not named, but they're numbered. So we've provided names for those teams. We go to 1951. The Pittsburgh franchise folds because 9 teams is just, it's just kind of awkward. So it leaves 8 teams, and the Chicago Robins become the Chicago Brawlers. And you may know some of these, names, these team names are familiar. You get the Minutemen, the Brawlers, the Barrelmen will originate in the Century League. So this is 1951. There's the Showboats, Jeff Hale's Showboats, 1951. We move to 1954. The Baltimore franchise is displaced. The St. Louis Browns move. So the Baltimore franchise relocates to Newark, New Jersey. They become the Newark Blue Sox. Everything else remains the same. That's the 1954 season. 1961, here's the Continental League. We got a new league. Now we got 2 leagues. So 4 in all, with the American League, the National League, the Century League, and the Continental League. So here are our Century League teams. The New York team moves to Brooklyn to take the place of the vacated Dodgers. Everybody else stays the same. And here are our 6 teams, or rather our 8 teams for the Continental League, which if you own this set, these are very familiar to you. The Atlanta Emeralds, Buffalo Bees, Dallas Rustlers, where Gaylord Perry pitches. The Denver Grizzlies, the Houston Texas Heroes, although on the cards it's just the Houston Heroes. They're intended to be like, the Alamo. Montreal Royal Blues, the New York Skyliners, and the Toronto Totems. That's 1961. Now we move to 1963. And Houston has to relocate. The Astros have taken over, so they're going to relocate to San Antonio and become the Six Guns. No changes in the Century League; they stay the same. Everybody else in the Continental League stays the same. 1965, the Atlanta Braves. The Milwaukee Braves moved to Atlanta, so the Atlanta Emeralds have to relocate. They go to San Diego. They become the San Diego Emeralds. Everybody else stays the same. Century League is beginning to kind of show some weakness. Attendance lags. Can America really support 4 baseball leagues? I don't know about that. We get to 1969, and guess what? San Diego has to move again, displaced by the Padres. It's just a hard luck franchise. They relocate to Hartford. They become the Hartford Emeralds. So we get Buffalo, Dallas, Denver, Hartford, Montreal, New York, San Antonio, and Toronto in the Continental League, 1969. Century League still has their 8 bellwether franchises, and we move on to 1970. And the Washington Senators force out move out to Texas, and the Century League Newark team relocates there. Becoming the Washington Filibusters. The Continental League stays the same. That's 1970. Now we move to 1973. Things are not looking good in the Century League. The Brooklyn club folds. There's no stadium there. The Polo Grounds are just horrible, leaving 7 teams. So they're back to that awkward, odd number of teams. And this is going to be the final year of separate leagues of the Continental League and the Century League, because in 1974, these two leagues are going to merge. Well, the Century League is going to fold, and 5 of their teams are going to be absorbed into the Continental League. The Boston Minutemen, the Chicago Brawlers, the Milwaukee Barrelmen, St. Louis Showboats, and the Washington Filibusters all join the Continental League, which drops the Dallas team. The Dallas team folds. Texas Rangers have forced them out. And so we got Buffalo, Denver, Hartford, Montreal, New York, San Antonio, and Toronto. 3 years later, Toronto moves to Vancouver, become the Vancouver Totems, after the American League expands to Toronto. Now we get to 1989, about a decade of not much changing. But again, the interest begins to kind of fade. Washington and Denver franchise wind up folding. And in 1989, the Continental League becomes 10 teams, these 10 teams. Boston, Buffalo, Chicago, Hartford, Milwaukee, Montreal, New York, St. Louis, San Antonio, and Vancouver. That's the 1989 Continental League. Move ahead to 1998. 9 years later, the Hartford franchise relocates to Charlotte, kind of following the Whalers to North Carolina. They become the Challengers. So the Charlotte Challengers take over for the Hartford franchise. That's 1998. It's still a 10-team league. 2004, the Boston franchise rebrands as New England. They become the New England Minutemen, and they agree to play some of their games in Hartford, Connecticut. And things pretty much stay the same until 2013. The Continental League rebrands. They take the Baseball America identity and kind of trying to freshen things up. They get some new ownership in Vancouver. The Totems become the Voyagers. It's a different team, but different ownership. And they expand into Las Vegas, the Big Shots, and the Nashville High Notes. So there's our lineup of 12 Baseball America teams, 2013, and these are the same teams that have played through Baseball America through the 2023 season: Buffalo Bees, Chicago Brawlers, Charlotte Challengers, the Las Vegas Big Shots, Milwaukee Barrelmen, Montreal Royal Blues, Nashville High Notes, New England Minutemen, New York Skyliners, St. Louis Showboats, San Antonio Six Guns, and the Vancouver Voyagers. And there they all are. Baseball America in 2022 celebrating 10 years of play with those teams. So that's how we got from here, to there. All right. That's the basic timeline that we've come up with. I really like this idea of expanding the fictional universe to include more, vintage seasons, to go back and build a storyline. Now, some people might say, well, fictional. I'm kind of lukewarm on fictional. Why are you investing time in fictional? Why don't you make more real seasons for History Maker Baseball? Well, number one, we are making more real seasons for History Maker Baseball. We have a new one coming out in a month or so. It's a season that we have not done previously, and it will be in the new color card format that we used for 1998 with a different trading card theme. But, so we are making more real seasons for it. It's not like we're abandoning real seasons for History Maker Baseball. But number two, it's difficult to get a decent number of people really excited about a new vintage baseball season anymore. Part of that is because, there's so many different baseball games, and they're all continually releasing new seasons. And it's just, it's just hard to get anybody excited about a season because it's most likely been done multiple times by other games. Secondly, it's just natural. Any particular season you want to talk about, there's just not that much there's not a lot of universal appeal of any one season. There'll be a lot of people who are, interested in like the 68 season or, the 85 season, which we released a couple of years ago, but not a large number of people, because some people just aren't even interested in baseball in the 1980s, So it's hard to get, a decent number of people really excited about any new vintage baseball season anymore, for whatever reason. So it seems easier to get people, more excited about a fictional baseball season because, it's new. there's the blue sky aspect of it. You wonder what's going to happen next. It's like you're learning about it for the first time. So I think people like that. It's interesting to me too as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to expand. I think we talked about this. This is not news. We announced this or discussed this in our first of the year stream that we wanted to do a vintage Baseball America season. But as you can see, we aren't going to. It's not going to be a Baseball America season because Baseball America didn't start until 2013. And we kind of went round and round on this. It's like, should we do like a 1987 Baseball America season? Well, the thing is, we celebrated Baseball America's 10th anniversary in 2022, so we're kind of locked into Baseball America starting in 2013, and so this is how we resolved that. It rebrands in 2013, but the teams exist going back to the 1940s. So we're going to do a vintage season, but we'd like some input as to what people would like to see most. Which era would people like to see most in a vintage fictional season? So we're going to give you 4 choices. I'm going to run down the 4 choices. We're going to do a little quick viewer poll here. You can vote right now, but I'm going to give you the 4 choices. Sam's going to create the poll. Then I'm going to go through each choice and talk about why it's cool, why you might want to elect it as the first option in our vintage fictional series. So the first idea would be a 1950s Century League. The second idea would be a mid to late 1960s fictional universe with 2 leagues. You'd have the Continental League and you'd have the Century League. 2 independent leagues. You get your own, like a World Series type thing between them. So you'd have 2, it'd be 16 teams in that scenario, mid to late 60s. We could do a 1974 season, which would represent the first year of the merger of the Century League and the Continental League. You'd have 12 teams in that sequence. And then we could do a late 90s or early 2000s season, which would have 10 teams in it. And so those are the 4 options. 1950 Century League, mid-1960s dual leagues, 1974 first year of the merged league, Continental, and the 4th option is a late 90s, early 2000s league. So those options should be up there. You can vote. Let me just run through why each one has its own appeal. First of all, the 1950 Century League. We've kicked around this idea for a long time about updating the Century League, going 6-7 years into it, and you've got some of the guys who are big stars in the 1940s Century League. You can follow their careers. We'd have probably about half the players would be new. You'd have half the players, depending on when we positioned it. If it was like a 1955 Century League, you'd have a lot of familiar players. A lot of the guys who were prospects in the 46 season would now be icons. And you'd see, guys who, you didn't think they were going to do much, but here they are, knocking the ball out of the park. And some guys who maybe were, pretty significant in the original Century League. It's like, where do they go? And they maybe kind of fizzled out their careers. So there'd be some continuity in the 1950s Century League. So that would be the first choice. Second choice would be a mid to late 1960s dual league set. You'd have 8 teams in each league, 2 completely independent leagues. I think the appeal there is that you could have like a World Series between the 2. You could run one or the other league, and then have like a World Series against the champion of the league that you didn't play, using some sort of a method to determine which team that would be. Now the mid '60s, our plan for the Continental League would be they would use the full 1961 complement of real players, but starting in 1962, we'd begin to infuse the Continental League with fictional players. So by, let's say 1981, 20 years down the road, the last prospect player from the 1961 Continental League will be finishing out his career in the 1981 Continental League. So at that point, the league would become entirely fictional again. So going forward, the Continental League will add fictional players, but will maintain the base of real players, through time. So that would have an interesting, unique twist to it, in that you'd have a mix of real players and fictional players in the Continental League, whether it's the '68 season or the '69 season, whereas the Century League would be completely fictional. We probably would introduce some sons of older Century League players into the mix. Be a little bit of continuity in the Century League as well. That's option number 2. Option number 3 would be the 1974 Continental League, which would be the merger, the first 12-team league, and it would have a mix of the two teams, which is kind of nice. It'd be a nice middle ground. You get some of each. You'd have some of the Century League influence. You'd have some of the Continental League influence. You'd have 1974. You would have some of the a handful of players, maybe 10% of the players from the '61 league would still be playing in '74, and they would be established stars at that point. So it'd be a nice middle ground. You get a little bit of everything with the 1974 Continental League vintage season. And then the fourth option would be a late '90s, early 2000s season. That would have 10 teams in it. And I think the appeal there is that we could, you would begin to see some of the players who you're currently familiar with in their younger playing days. You'd have Mike Kettle. You'd have, there would be Doug Smolls would be playing in his prime. Guys like, I'm drawing a blank now, player names, Matt Hubstack, guys who have been around. A lot of the all-decade players from 2013. Some of them would have played in a early 2000s or late 1990s Continental League, and so you'd have some continuity from the current Baseball America, looking backwards. So those are the talking points for each of those options, and I'd say just go ahead and vote. Let us know what you think here on our. We got it going.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that the '74 is.
Oh, good. Well, all right. Well, I was telling Sam prior to the show, it's like, which of these would I like to do? They all have appeal to me. I think that they're all fascinating. So I'm okay with whatever people think is the coolest idea. So,
Cut it off.
if you want to, I mean, you can let it run for a little bit. We're about ready to wrap up the show anyway. It's a short stream tonight. But I hope it piqued your interest in the possibilities of our fictional universe. I do see us, I'm sure we're never going to release all the seasons, but I can see us piecing together, sort of bridging the eras and beginning to put together, a potential Hall of Fame, guys, generational players who, will be memorable for what they did, and we can begin to create backstory for them. And then, we can see players who have their sons join the league and play. I just think it's really cool, and it's totally blue sky. We can completely. It's not like we're rehashing anything. We're creating our own history. In some ways, I kind of feel like Robert Coover in Robert Coover's book, The Universal Baseball Association, where the guy just creates his own. J. Henry Waugh creates his own baseball universe. And kind of gets engrossed in it. It really is kind of interesting to do it that way, and so maybe that's kind of what we're doing. But it's fascinating and I think fun, and I think we've gone far enough along with our fictional universe here that I think a lot of people. There've been a lot of converts. I don't know how many times I've heard people say, I really wasn't that interested. I never thought I'd really like fictional, but now I'm hooked. The Scram season's got me. Totally hooked into what's going to happen next. And same with Baseball America and Football America. So I do think we've made some inroads with fictional sports and the interest, the fun that there is in the open-endedness of it. So hope it piqued your interest if you're on the fence, and if you are already all in on the fictional universe, thank you for your feedback, and you're welcome to come along for the ride. Should be kind of fun. Next week, we will have a sneak peek at our soon-to-be-released new Red, White, and Blue Racing card set, celebrating 75 years of racing. NASCAR is celebrating their 75th anniversary this year, and we have put together, I say we, Jerry Minks and I have been working pretty closely together to put together a really, really cool set, unlike any other Red, White, and Blue Racing set that we've ever released, and I think you're going to really love it. We'll show you the prototype, the beta version on next Thursday's show. We're anticipating releasing that Memorial Day weekend. We are running a little bit. Sam's going to be going to Japan for a week, and so that's going to set us back a little bit. So we may delay the release of this until June, but I think we're still on track to have this 75th anniversary race and set out for Memorial Day weekend. So we'll have more. We'll actually know more by next Thursday. We're in the final stages of kind of proving it out. So join us next Thursday. Get a look at it. I think you'll really like it. It'll be pretty exciting, and appreciate you being here to see it. I think you'll like it. Appreciate you being on the show with us tonight. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for voting. We appreciate you being part of our amazing community. We really do enjoy hanging out with you, and thanks a lot for being here. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week right here on the Play Games YouTube channel.